American watchmakers. This is a video that I've wanted to make for quite some time. I'm going to name some really cool American brands. These are as American as you can currently get. There are a lot of brands that are located here in the United States. Assembly might be done here, but usually they're using parts and finishing that is done overseas. The brands that we're talking about today, there is a lot that is being done here in the United States. There's only one watch brand that is located here in the United States that is almost to 100%. And we'll talk about that watch brand during the video. So without further ado, let's talk about American watch brands. I can't talk about American watch brands without talking about Reuter Watches. Reuter Watches is a brand that is located here in New York. Dan Reuter, who's the watchmaker, the owner, he's marketing, he does everything for the brand currently. And I'm not featuring him here only because he's my friend, but because I genuinely love his watches and I love what he is doing. His watches aren't cheap. However, everything that you put your hands on when you're looking at his watch is finished here in the United States. Currently, he is making his own dials, his indices. He's also making his own hands, hand finishing all of his movements. Right now, he is still using Valjoux movements. His latest watch will feature a Valjoux 7753. However, there are some pretty cool movements on the horizon that he will be using. Some of the engraving is done out of his hands. However, it's still done here in the United States. There's an engraver in California that works for Shapiro who engraves on his dials. So you're getting very high quality watches, hand finished cases, hand finished movements, handmade and hand finished dials. You cannot get better than that at the price that he is charging. He isn't cheap. $12,500 is where his watches start. However, you are getting a lot for that money. The next watch on this list has the most American name on this list. It is 1776 Ailier. They make a number of watches and they also make their own movement. Now, about 70% of that movement is made here in the United States. So they're actually machining parts here in the United States. So they state about 70% of their movement is made in the United States. I think that is really good, and they are always pushing to do more. They also do a lot of hand finishing and hand engraving here in the United States. They use a German dial, they use a Swiss case, but they're doing anglage, perlage, hand engraving, solarization, and laser engraving here in the United States. Their watches start at around $2,900. They go up from there. Obviously, you're not getting the hand engraving at that $2,900. You are getting laser engraving, but there still is a lot of handwork that goes into the movement. And of course, you are getting that partially being 70% American made movement. Really beautiful watches, guilloche dials, which are pressed. So those are stamped dials. I have two hands-on that I'm making this video with, but I will have more in the future to show you guys from this brand, and I am very excited about it. His name has already come up in this video. It is Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro, located in California, probably the highest end watchmaker on this list with some of the most expensive watches. In fact, I believe his least expensive watch is around $25,000. For that price, you are getting a very American watch. You're getting an American-made case, American-made dial, hands, crown, case back. However, you are not getting an American-made movement. In these watches, you're getting a Valjoux Perret, which is no slouch. However, you're not getting an American-made movement in these models, and they do cost $25,000. If you want one with an American-made movement, and he is making the closest thing to a 100% American-made movement, that will cost you north of $80,000. They are very, very expensive. That $25,000 watch is not in precious metal. That is a non-precious metal dial, non-precious metal case. So very expensive watches, but you are getting some beautiful engine turning. He is famous for the engine turning that he does on his bezels, on his case backs. and that's the reason why they are extremely expensive. And they're also made in California. Obviously, operating out of California is not cheap. So there you go. Cornell Watch Company, a brand that was recently revived. It's a 19th century American brand based out of Chicago. They have come out with a few new watches. Their latest watch is their most American watch thus far. Again, you're going to see a theme here. The case, dial, hands, crown. These are all items made here in the United States, CNC'd in Ohio. And they are trying to make their watches as American as possible. This newest watch they've come out with is a really good looking watch. It is powered by an SW300, so that is a Swiss-made movement. It's an elaborate grade, but it is still a Swiss-made automatic. With that being said though, this looks really sharp. I love the tones on this watch. It's basically gray on gray on gray, which I do really like. And I hope that a brand like this will eventually develop their own automatic movement that is American, or try and use the Americron and finish it themselves so that it's a little bit more higher end. That would be really cool as well. Speaking of the Americron automatic movement, Colorado Watch Company are a watch brand that was recently created by the brand Vortic. If you're not familiar with them, they make pocket watches that are basically recased pocket watches into a wristwatch form. Really cool watches, and they've been selling these for quite some time. And they decided to come out with their own American micro brand, and that micro brand is called Colorado Watch Company. It's based in Fort Collins, just like Vortic. Their cases and dials are in-house, so they make them in-house in Colorado with movements assembled in the United States, the automatic Americron, the movement that I was talking about before. They're about 85% American made. Although they're not 100%, they are trying to get there. This is a really cool movement that maybe if a higher end watch manufacturer got their hands on, they could finish it a little bit better, maybe put some different bridges on it, make it look a little bit different. That would be really good for a higher end watch. But this is technically not a high end watch. These are coming in at around $1,400. That's not all that bad for what is almost one of the most American watches on this list. By the way, I did forget to mention that Cornell watch that I mentioned earlier, the watch right before this one, that watch comes in at $6,200. Really not all that bad considering the amount of effort that they're putting into this watch to make it as American as possible. The fact that it has a Selena movement isn't all that great, but like I said, hopefully they move into something more American eventually. No list about American watchmaking could be complete without mentioning RGM. Roland Murphy is a legend in watchmaking. Not only American watchmaking, but in watchmaking in general. He's a trained watchmaker. He worked at Hamilton for a while, and he started his own brand in Lancaster, PA, which is actually not that far away from where I live, and I do want to visit his workshop one day and maybe do an interview, see some watches. That would be really cool. I know he has open houses from time to time, so if you're interested in ever stopping in, he does do open houses. He's a little bit rough around the edges. He's not like these Swiss manufacturers, the Swiss watchmakers that you'll meet. He's like a regular guy, and I really like that about him. I've met him a few times. I actually got to see him use a Rose engine, a vintage Rose engine, an antique one. It was really cool to watch. He does a lot himself as well. So not all of his watches are American made. He is using a lot of Swiss components, but he is now using some American made cases. He is making a lot of his dials, some of his hands, and he is also trying to make some movement. So I believe he has made one movement thus far. I'm not sure how American that is. I actually cannot find the percentage American that movement is. I know that they are constantly trying to make their watches more and more American, and they have some really great designs. A lot of his designs, a lot of his dials are handmade, so they are on the more expensive side. Watches start at around $5,000 and go up and way up from there, depending on how much work is actually put into the watches. If you like field watches, Weiss Watches is a great brand that is also, again, trying to make their watches as American as possible. Each watch is individually assembled by a Swiss-trained watchmaker here in the United States. Its case, crown, and buckle all machined in-house. He's doing a lot of CNC here in the United States, a theme that you've seen throughout this video. However, he is also trying to make his own American-made movement, and he has a movement that is 95% American-made. So one of the closest to being a fully American-made watch. This is their caliber 1003. It's actually a very good-looking movement. Their watches are also pretty good-looking, but they all kind of are a field watch theme. So you really have to like that look. If you don't, then you're not going to like his watches. I hope he branches out into something a little bit more high-end eventually. Maybe a dress watch, something in a precious metal. That would be really cool. And maybe do some collaborations. Right now, his wheelhouse is tool watches. So that's what he's doing, and he's doing a really good job at it. So why not keep at it? Their prices are very fair. $2,800 is where they start. Very, very good price. The next brand on this list is a watch that you will probably never, ever encounter in the wild, because there are hardly any of these watches being made. They are very, very limited. There is only one guy making them, and they are extremely, extremely well made. KonMrick is based out of Oregon, and if you see one of his watches, you would immediately think that it's some sort of Swiss independent brand. However, it's not. In fact, his movement is based on a Unitas movement, except he is replacing a lot of parts that he is making. He is machining a lot of his own parts and replacing them on base movements. And then, of course, doing a lot of the hand finishing, reworking all of the parts in the movement to his standard here in the United States in his studio in Oregon. He is also making his own dials. He's making his own cases. Prices on these are a lot more expensive because there is a lot of work that goes into these. Again, these are all hand finished, all handmade, and everything that is Swiss is basically unrecognizable by the time he is done with it. He introduced his first watch in 2013. I believe he is still making those watches. It was a series of 30, and it takes him about 2.5 years to complete one watch. So if you buy a watch from him, you will be waiting a very long time to get it. One recently sold, I believe it was Phillips, for around $38,000. So they are not cheap. I think the estimate was between $15,000 and $20,000, and it sold well above that estimate. Very good looking watches, very rare and very interesting. And I guess that's why they are currently at a very high premium. Well, there you go. That's my list. There are a number of other American watch brands that I could have included on this list. However, I'm going to make a separate video where I'm talking about American brands. This video was more about American watchmakers. So watchmakers actually assembling and finishing watches here in the United States, making strides to actually make parts here in the United States, which is not always the case for a lot of American brands. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. In a later video, I'll talk about American independent brands, American micro brands, and things like that. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Add a comment down below of a brand that I might have missed. There are a few brands out there that I might have missed. I know there are brands popping up here and there. Definitely add a comment down below. I would love to make a part 2 of this video. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. That's really it, guys. Catch you guys in the next video.